Rabbit Society gets dead wrong. Number one, rabbits have to have hay and should be given fresh vegetables. No, rabbits actually don't need hay as long as they are given a properly balanced pellet. Hay oftentimes just filler. A lot of times it's not even good hay. I mean, okay, let's put it this way. I have 2 bales of hay behind me. Do you know which is the good bale and which is the shitty bale? This is the better bale. So this is that softer second or third cut bale. And you can kind of see what I mean by soft. It's like real easy just to squeeze. It's kind of squishable. This is a little bit easier on, well, a lot of times this will be like horse. I like using this for bedding and for extra calorie content. This one is a little more weedy. This particular section of it doesn't look like it's so weedy. It's mostly grass, but this was an alfalfa clover orchard grass mix. And like I said, this is the one that the does will get for nest building material, and if I need them to have a little extra calories for over the winter. That's the shitty bale. First cut grass mix. This is a lot twiggier. You can feel it. You can hear it's like crunchy. Like this is very stemmy. Winter bedding, giving them something to do during the day that's not very nutrient dense. If they get it, they typically aren't going to get it in the summer. But in the winter, if I want them to have a little extra calories or something to bulk up on or something to burrow into, that's what the majority of them are going to get. Temperature dropped, so I went ahead and threw a flake of the first cut, the cheapy hay, the stemmy stuff, for them to play in and mess around with. Just because it was getting chilly and I'd rather give them something to burrow in. So they're either going to chill in their little pipe, very cozy, or there's a whole bunch that are chilling back under here to be very silly buns. There. Okay. I just came in from the field, obviously. I know we got other farm moms out there who know what this is. We go out with our rubber boots and our pajamas on in the morning because we got to get the animals done before we eat or pee or shower. Anyway, just to briefly go over hay, and I'm going to do a longer series on this later. If they don't need it, I didn't say that they can't have it. And vegetables, I didn't say they can't. In fact, I even said in the video, the list of things that I listed, rabbits can technically have most of them. The trick is, you have to introduce it correctly. So the next set of videos we're going to be doing is differences between types of hay, when you give types of hay, proper storage for types of hay, when you give vegetables, what vegetables are safe, when you give fruits, which fruits are safe, which plants you can use for certain medicinal conditions that actually are better than some medications or you can use before you use medication. I didn't say rabbits can never have hay. I said, number one, people don't know how to pick hay for the most part, which is what we're going to explain here. Pet store hay is not very good for the most part because it's cheap, and sometimes you get really, really good stuff, but it's incorrect for your species and what you're giving them. Now let's go over cuts real quick. First cut hay is your hardest stuff. You saw that stuff in the video. That was a first cut hay. It tends to be very stemmy, really thick, because that's just the immediate first grow up of the summer. Second cut, a little more nutritious, a little bit softer. That's particularly horse hay like that because they got some stemminess for the extra fiber, but then they also got some other stuff for nutrition. Third cut, super, super soft. Lots of stuff. I like it because there tends to be lots of different growth, weeds, more leafy parts. Sometimes you get flowers like clover. Okay, part 2. When do I give hay? I give hay when I have moms who are nesting, and I particularly I use some straw. I give them first for the bottom. Straw is not hay. And then I'll give them some third cut because it's soft, second or third cut because it's softer for them to actually build their nest into. And usually also they get that third cut because it's more nutritious. And when we're getting ready to have does that are going to kindle, I want to make sure that they're getting a little bit extra. They sometimes need the extra fiber right around then for, again, medicinal purposes. It helps prevent bloat. because there's a lot going on when they're about ready to have babies. Also because I tend to pick hays that have alfalfa and a clover mix integrated in them. Clover helps with milk production. Red clover helps boost it. Alfalfa helps with, alfalfa is technically a legume, it's not hay, but alfalfa has extra nutritious, so when they're getting ready to have those babies and they're working hard. Okay, and then we're going to cover when do the kits get hay and what other times is hay appropriate. So, and again, I'm going to be going into more detail about types of hay and listing out which ones, because hay is a very broad terminology. So kits will get hay right around if mom's getting it while she's nursing, it's going to be the third cut, and it'll be an alfalfa clover orchard grass mix, because that's typically what I like to get. All right, mom will get that almost the entire time that she's doing nursing, because she's going to be rebuilding her nest and gives her something to nibble on, and it helps with weaning the kits. So they will have access to it most of the time. During the weaning process, and mom will start to kick the kits off and wean them at 3 weeks. And so between 3 and 8 weeks, they will have access to what mom gets, and that also has pretty much, I think I've had weaning internites once in 5 years. Kits will continue to have access to hay, although I may move it from third cut down to second cut, depending on how they're growing out or what they need, until they're in the grow out pen. When they move into the grow out pen, again, we limit the amount. We want them mostly on their pellets. That's their primary diet. They will have access to toys at that point. They do have stuff to play with. They have free feed on the pellets until they're about 4 months old, give or take, depends on their grow out rate. Sometimes we'll pull a little bit sooner, depending on how they're doing. And then they will, then they do get stuff to munch on. So for a while, yeah, they will have access, but it's controlled which one they get. It's going to be controlled if they're getting a high calorie hay or a low calorie hay, one that's more fiber, one that's more nutritious. So it really does depend on the rabbits and what you're doing, but that's just that's how we raise them. And again, to stress time of year, as I mentioned at the beginning, most of the time when they're getting hay, it's colder months and when it's medicinally necessary. So in the summer, we may not do any hay at all for the grow outs. We may just go ahead and do whatever mom's getting for nest building, let them kind of nibble on that, and when we move them into the grow out pen, it's going to be basically just some for bedding, because that's where they're comfortable. And then they typically don't get a lot of hay. I will occasionally stuff in first and second cut into some of the tubes. So again, they have something to keep them occupied and play with, so they don't end up fighting or being stupid with each other, because they're kits and they get bored. But for the most part, it's not really necessary. If they're in single cages and they're out already, I got a couple back there that they only get it if I know the weather's going to be horrible or it's going to be chilly. Otherwise, they're basically on pellets and water. Okay, so we covered when the does, pregnant and nursing does, get hay and what type of hay. Next, we're going to go with the bucks. Bucks, non-nursing does, grow outs past the age of 5 months. Basically, rabbits that aren't currently producing litters or pregnant or have a high energy need or a medical need typically just get pellets. And occasionally we get some snackies, but again, I'll cover what fruit and what snackies they get. But when they do get stuff, it's typically winter time. When it's very cold out, I like to make sure that they have a little extra hay and stuff in order to burrow in and play in and to keep them occupied. And occasionally during the summer, it's more of a toy though. So the type of hay that they will get is they'll get straw, which again, not hay, and we'll explain what that is in a minute, or they'll get like first cut. And it's more of a toy and just something to keep them busy during the day, so they got something to do. All right, I'm going to go pause the series for right now as I covered most of the very generalized basics. I'm going to come back later and we're going to discuss alfalfa legumes. We're going to discuss mixes of hay, because I've mentioned that my third cut, what I prefer to have in the mix, but there's different ones. There's straight Timothy, there's Timothy alfalfa mix, there's orchard grass Timothy alfalfa mix, there's orchard grass clover mix, there's orchard grass clover alfalfa mix, which is my preference. Then there's straw, which is not hay. It's typically the byproduct of growing wheat. Typically, not always. There's different types of straw. And then we have which cut it is, which we kind of went over as far as leafy and nutrition requirements. And then there's also when hay is completely dangerous and you have to be very careful where you're getting it, because it has actually passed the RHVD2 onto several rabbit trees out west that have gotten it shipped in, and unfortunately that's where it came from, is it was on the hay. So you need to discuss everything about this before